This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Welcome back to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with your host, David Charlton. Today I share a short bite from Professor Camilla Knight and the very well received episode 122. We go on to chat about the well-being of children, communication between children and parents, as well as touching on self-care as a parent. I really hope that you enjoy it.
You know, as a parent, you invest a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of emotion. And we know that, the culture of some sports, not all sports, but many, competitive sports demand and require more and more and more from parents and from children. So I think it's natural to understand that actually, the environment is going to shape and impact on what you're thinking, what you think is important, and also who you're spending time with. So you're spending time with different people who maybe have different beliefs or different goals. And ultimately, all of that's going to start to influence, thoughts, feelings, behaviours.
So the self-awareness piece there is very critical as a parent. More recently, in the last few years, mental health and well-being has widely been researched and it's discussed on a daily basis in sports psychology. What advice would you give to parents around that, again, with regards to the youth sport experience?
I think that the first thing, and perhaps I was going to say the most important, but I don't think it's the most important. I'd say the first thing is, recognizing actually, what's typical for your child. I think sometimes we have an idea of, what a child should be doing, how they should be acting. They need to be social, they need to be doing certain things, but not all children are the same. And as a parent, you know your child best. And, understanding, what your child's typical behaviors are is really important, because then you can start to notice when behaviors maybe start to change. And then it's about having conversations. And I think it's about having open and honest conversations regularly. One of the things that's very consistent in the research and the work that I do around parents is just how important it is to try and communicate and to understand your child as an individual, not to get drawn into comparing them to others, but actually just to, have regular conversations about how are they doing? What are they thinking? How are things going? And, that maybe sounds a little bit too simple, but if you start to introduce some of those habits early on, then hopefully they can continue. But also, I think it's about recognizing actually how early experiences within sport, and obviously, well-being's influenced by many things outside of sport. But if we are thinking about sport, specifically, we don't want children to get too drawn into, an exclusive athletic identity too early, because we know that can impact on their well-being if things aren't going well, or maybe there's a transition, or maybe something's going really well, and that's kind of unexpected. As well. So I think as a parent, an important role that you can play is in those early formative years of sport participation is just encouraging children to, engage in a range of different sports, explore themselves outside of sport as well, and, have, a multifaceted identity.
Yeah, I suppose by getting involved in a range of sports, as well as the psychological benefits, you've got the physical benefits as well, haven't you? The different movement patterns they develop and the social groups and bonds and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I am conscious that there is a lot of recommendations and suggestions around, ensuring that children are sampling a lot of different sports, and that can come with financial and time pressures for parents. So I do put the caveat in there of, recognizing actually what's possible within your means as a parent, because, great, we could be encouraging, a child to play a different sport every single day of the week. But actually, if you can't do that financially or because of time or commitments of other siblings, as a parent, if that's causing you stress and putting, excessive demands on you, then that will also then subsequently could impact on your child as well, because we know that how you feel as a parent impacts on how you you parent your child. So I think, there is, a recognition that actually, parents need to be taking care of themselves a little bit along the way. And that's become very apparent with COVID and the lockdowns, with, talking to a lot of parents who, obviously no one wanted the pandemic, but they quite enjoyed it for a little bit when some of those commitments and those requirements to be here, there and everywhere all of the time were taken away. And then when they all came back almost at once, their eyes were wide open going, well, how are we doing this? And they hadn't realized that, over time we just signed up for one club and then another club, and then hours had increased, and suddenly, very, very scheduled. And, that overscheduling obviously can have impacts on children and, opportunities for rest and recovery and free play and, time to just be a child outside of very adult structured activities. But it also has an impact on parents and family life and social life, So I think, a key thing is recognizing that the parent-child relationship is a relationship. It's bi-directional. And actually, if we want to give children the best experiences, we have to understand what's going on for parents and vice versa.
So this short bite was inspired by many conversations I have with parents, some of which have children in very competitive and pressurized sporting academy settings, such as football, cricket, and gymnastics in particular, where the time, the travel demands are going through the roof on parents, as well as the emotional side, which can be very difficult for both children and parents due to the pressures placed on them and the potential of being released. Camilla touched on self-care as a parent being very important, and I'd like to reiterate that and get you to think about what task-related strategies you have in place to help you as a parent. For example, it might be dog walks, exercise, doing some reading. And then what social strategies do you have for yourself? Could it be meeting friends for a coffee, a meal, or a night out? Or perhaps taking part in an activity or an exercise class to help yourself? Give it some thought, please. And lastly, I'd also like you to be very honest with yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is self-care to you as a parent? Please give it some thought. It's so important. It's not selfish if you do give yourself a 7 or an 8 for self-care. It's only going to help you, but also it's going to help your children. For more on helping sporting parents, please do feel free to sign up to the Mental Edge newsletter, which comes out most weeks and where I share a host of resources to challenge your thinking and help everyone from children to top athletes to parents to coaches to get the most out of their skills and their abilities. Take care and enjoy your week. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.